In today's episode of the Having It All podcast, I'm talking about something that scares the crap out of many people, and that's honesty. Welcome to the Having It All podcast, the show about what it takes to live an abundant, loving life. My name is Matthew Bivens, and each week I'm helping you get out of your head so that you can truly have it all. Let's do it. I was inspired to talk about honesty today from an article that I read on Huffington Post called The Pros and Cons of Brutal Honesty. I recommend you guys check it out, and there's a link to the article in the show notes, which you can find on firesidenetwork.com. And the major takeaway from the article, and really the thesis for this episode, is this quote: "People that stop growing are individuals who decide they can no longer handle brutal honesty." That completely resonated with me when I read it, and it totally described me several years ago. And I'll get into an example or two about me being unwilling to face brutal honesty, and you guys might connect with that one. But really, in this show, I talk a lot about unconditional love and just love in general. And that's the ALL for the title of the show, Having It All. ALL stands for abundant, loving life. And I believe that part of what it means to love someone unconditionally, including yourself, yourself included, unconditionally loving yourself, part of what that means is being honest. Being honest. So, if you're being honest with another person, you could be honest with how they're showing up, how you're feeling towards them, how you're experiencing them, what you'd like to experience with them, what you see for them, even the impact that they have on your life. Those are all areas where you can be brutally honest with someone. And, this podcast is all about rewriting beliefs. It's about moving through fears. It's about discovering your truth and living it boldly and authentically. And it's really about viewing life through that lens of abundance and love. And I believe, and it's been my experience, that getting there for most of us takes growth. It takes growth to go from a place of judgment and fear and scarcity into a place of acceptance and love and abundance. And so I love that quote. And when I was reading the article, it reminded me of something that I heard Brene Brown say. Brene Brown is an author. She has an awesome TED Talk. You can go check that out. I'll link to it in the show notes as well. And I had the pleasure of seeing her speak at a conference that I was at last year. And it sort of inspired me to think about this quote today in a different way. And another way that you can think about honesty and growth is that your willingness to be completely honest with yourself, other people in life, is the best predictor of the growth that you'll experience across your life. The more willing you are to be honest, the more growth that you can expect to happen, or at least you've created the space for growth to happen. But when you are unwilling to be honest, when there is no honesty, then little growth takes place, and that's because of denial. Because denial is that tool that the ego will use to just hang out in its comfort zone. And I think that we have all experienced that. We all have experienced when fear kicks in and we decide to not do something because it is more comfortable to not take any sort of action. So I ask you a question. I want you to noodle on this. Where are you holding back being honest with yourself or other people because of fear? That might be fear of how your honesty is going to be received. Maybe it's fear of what will shift after you share your truth. Because sometimes when you speak your truth, when you're honest, things change, and that might scare the crap out of you. It could be fear of the action that you're going to be moved to take once you are honest. Maybe it's fear of being vulnerable and sharing your true thoughts and feelings. And here's the truth about withholding yourself because of fear. And this is going to sound a little like Star Wars, but that's cool. Fear leads to judgment, and judgment leads to attachment. I know Yoda said it a little bit different in the movie. But what I'm saying is that fear, when you fear something, you end up judging it. Because a lot of times fear comes from a lack of understanding. And when we don't understand something, we judge it. And then when we judge something, we attach to it. And what happens is that outcome, that thing that you are fearing the most, it ends up controlling you. And so I talked just a second ago about the fear of being vulnerable and sharing your true thoughts and feelings. And I'm going to talk a little bit about a personal experience that I imagine some of you guys will be able to connect with because, it's real. And for me, that fear of being vulnerable, it created this attachment to secrecy. I was very attached to my secrecy, and I started to build walls around my emotions. And every time I built that wall, every time I wasn't brutally honest with my partner, that wall got more and more difficult for me to climb over every day. And I did this junk for years. I did it for years. It was just a part of my scripting. And it's something that I'm still working on today. And so the relationship I'm talking about is one that I had before my wife, before her and I met. And, I dated this woman for 4 years. And it was the first, I think, just solid girlfriend that I had had. My other relationships up to that point had been, measured in months. And now I'm in a multi-year relationship. And we ended up moving in together and all sorts of different things. And I was emotionally immature in both how I dealt with my emotions, how I communicated my emotions. And I was terrified, honestly, of sharing what I really wanted out of the relationship, especially physically, especially when it came to sex and things going down in the bedroom. I just was terrified to say, hey, I want to experience this. Hey, I would love for you to do this. Hey, I would love to do this with you. That just, it wasn't part of who I was to open up and be vulnerable like that. And it created so many issues in the relationship. And so what I ended up doing, and this is something that I started way before her, I turned to porn. I would watch porn multiple times a week. And I would really not lie about it because she didn't know until she eventually caught me. But I began to lie about my happiness in the relationship. And so what happened is, like, as soon as a conversation or some sort of experience would go south, then I would just completely retreat emotionally. And I would give myself permission to go crack open the laptop and watch porn when she wasn't there. I'd be like, okay, this conversation is turning shitty, or, we're on vacation and it's not flowing right now. So, you can just retreat, Matthew. And then when you get back, you'll just take care of yourself and it'll all be cool. That was the paradigm, the mental thought process that I had for a long time. I did it for years. And then what happened as a result of all that is I started to create these stories to help offset the extreme guilt that I was feeling. Because I was feeling guilty as shit because there was no part of me that said that what I was experiencing was healthy. And so I started to create these stories to offset that extreme guilt that I was having. And the stories sounded like, well, we have a strong relationship because I'm emotionally attached to her. We have a strong relationship because when she's feeling great, I'm feeling great. And when she's feeling down, I just can't function. We're so connected. That means we're strong. Like, that was the stuff I was telling myself. And it really only clicked years later when I started to be more honest with myself, honest with my partner, that I started to really understand the extreme amount of, the extreme lack of transparency that I had in the past and what was resulting from that. And so I'm a psychology major. I studied psychology all through undergrad. And there's this concept called cognitive dissonance. And what cognitive dissonance is, it's basically stress that you create and that you experience when you are holding two completely contradictory beliefs or ideas at the same time. So I was experiencing all types of stress: emotional stress, physical stress, mental stress, relationship stress, obviously. And it was because I had these two ideas that I was trying to juggle at the same time. And those ideas were that I have a healthy relationship because I'm emotionally dependent on this person, and that I don't have to share and be honest, and that I can create stories and I can essentially lie. So I'm telling myself that your relationship is healthy, which was BS. And I'm also telling myself it's okay to not be honest and transparent and to lie. And that created all sorts of just havoc on me. And it really made this an environment where dishonesty or turning away from the truth. And I don't mean dishonesty in that she would say, are you doing this? And I'd say no. But shying away from being transparent when it came to like things. How are you feeling? What do you want from this relationship? What do you want to experience? Like when I was confronted with those types of conversations and those types of questions, I would turn. And what resulted is that I don't believe that I experienced significant growth in the relationship. I believed I learned a lot. I have a lot of lessons that I took away from it. But as a person, I don't feel that I grew significantly. I do think there was some growth. I mean, 4 years is a long time, and I had a lot of physical maturing and some emotional maturing that took place. But the possible growth, the growth that was possible across 4 years, I surely did not reach those levels, and because I wasn't willing to be honest. I wasn't willing to be honest. And so this is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode. I'm realizing as I'm getting towards the end of what I wanted to share, but I want to end and wrap up this portion of the episode by reading a passage from the article, from the Huffington Post article. And the couple paragraphs I'm going to read, starting right now. Brutal honesty usually means pointing at someone's shadow. And we as a society really, really, really do not like our shadows. We don't want to know about them. We don't want to acknowledge them. We don't want to even know that they're there. People that stop growing are individuals who decide they can no longer handle brutal honesty. They deny what is being presented in front of them. They cannot hear you, nor do they want to make the effort, because that would mean a disruption in their very secure yet fragile paradigm. But the people who, no matter how arduous or scary or vulnerable or frustrating it might be, can handle brutal honesty are the ones who continue along their growth curve. They continue to grow and reinvent themselves because they are always bringing more light and awareness to their shadow self. I just love how that is presented because that described me. That described the place that I was in when I was very, very unwilling to look at my quote-unquote shadow self, which really was just look at the person who I was choosing to be, versus where I am now, much more transparent and open and more willing and courageous to look at all aspects of myself and look at them for what they are. Like the brutal honesty is not about judgment. It's not about turning over the stones in your life and being like, damn, you are a shitty person. Look at that stuff that you do. You watch porn and don't tell your girlfriend. You lie. You do. It's not about judging. It's simply about looking at what is. Just looking at what is. Because things simply are. It's just things that happen. It's circumstances. It's life. And then we layer on our own beliefs and judgments and thoughts and opinions about them. So if you can simply look at what is, and that's what brutal honesty is about. It's just about looking at what is and separate the emotion. Don't become attached to the emotion or the judgment. Then you are going to give yourself the chance to heal and to grow. And I say the chance because there's a component that I believe has to happen after the brutal honesty to really act as a catalyst for the growth. And in order to do that, in order to experience that growth, we got to move. I want you to be brutally honest with yourself, because the more you can do that, the more that you can be honest with other people in your life. And the more that you can simply look at your life for what it is and say, okay, that's what it is right now. This is what it is. I would like to experience this. And when you're brutally honest, you can look at whatever that gap is and you can create a plan to cross that gap. And so it's the holiday season, and I want to give you guys an amazing tool that you can use to be brutally honest with yourself. And that tool is called the Abundance Benchmark. It's 100% free. It's something that's on my website. You can go and download it. And the Abundance Benchmark is something that I put together to help you self-assess, to help you give yourself feedback and be very honest with yourself on 6 different areas of life so that you can say, okay, this is where I am in this area. I want to get here. Let's make a plan of action. And the 6 major areas of life that the Abundance Benchmark addresses will sound familiar to some if you've listened to the show before. They are faith, family, friends, fitness, finance, and fun. And the reason why it sounds familiar is because in previous episodes, I have unpacked the meaning of ALL, abundant, loving life. And that life portion is the 6 F's. And so what the Abundance Benchmark is going to do is it's going to show you how you're showing up in life. It'll show you how you're showing up in your faith, in your family, in your friends, in your fitness, in your finance, and in your fun. Now, the only catch to this tool, the only catch with the Abundance Benchmark is that it doesn't work if you're not honest. It does not work at all if you use it and you are not honest with how you are experiencing and who you are being in those areas. But I'm not worried about that with you. That's not you, because if you're listening to this podcast, if you're listening to any other shows like mine, you're probably doing so because you want to experience growth in your life in some way. You want to experience growth, you want to experience abundance, you want to experience love. And so honesty ain't no thing with you. You're going to be honest. So again, the Abundance Benchmark is my free gift to you. Just jump on my website, MatthewBivens.com, and you can download the Abundance Benchmark and just, give yourself an opportunity to practice brutal honesty. And you can do it in your own, in your privacy. You don't have to be honest with other people right now, but start somewhere. Start somewhere and just give yourself like a chance to see where you are at in these different areas in life. In your faith, how are you showing up in your faith? What does faith mean to you? What does, if you were to picture your ideal self or your greatest self in the area of your faith, are you being it? If not, then where are you? Where are you in that, in that range? How about with your family? Are you showing up within your family the way that you want to? With your kids, with your spouse, with your siblings, with your parents? I know family for me is a huge thing right now. We had last week's episode was about a family therapy call that I did with my sisters and my father, and we had another one yesterday. And so family and how I'm showing up in family is so top of mind for me. And so when I go and look at, my Abundance Benchmark results, I have to say, man, okay, this is how you're showing up with your family. You want to be showing up this way. So what do you have to do to get there? It's objective. All right. And then how about your friends? How are you showing up with your friends? Are you being the friend that you want to be? Are you receiving your friends the way that you want to receive them? When they reach out, when they extend themselves to you, how are you responding? Who are you being? How about with your fitness? Again, it's the holiday season. A lot of folks just ignore their fitness this time of year. But is that who you want to be? Is that truly the example you want to set for yourself and for the other people who are watching you? I think fitness is an insanely awesome area to be brutally honest. And that's because your body doesn't lie. No matter how much your brain wants to lie, your ego wants to lie, like your body can't lie. It just is. I like to say that your body is simply a printer. It prints out whatever you command it to. So how are you showing up in your fitness? How are you showing up in your health? How about with your finances? You know, I spent so many years being terrified of my personal financial situation, totally lying to myself about my finances. And it wasn't until I grew some balls and started to become honest with myself as to where my finances were that I started to shift things around. I'm talking about having creditors calling me, shitty credit score, bank account totally overdrafted. Like I remember one time in just after college, sitting on the curb out front of my job, realizing I had zero money in the bank account because I had mismanaged my finances because I was so scared to look at them. So are you being brutally honest with your finances? And how about fun? How about the area in your life where you can experience some childlike play? Have you convinced yourself that you don't need that? That fun is not something that is really important to you? How honest are you in the area of fun? That's what the abundance benchmark can bring to you. And so you're going to have opportunities to look at yourself in all of those 6 areas. And I've written out on a scale of, I believe it's 1 to 9, where you are in each of those 6 areas. And there's descriptors. And so you can read through it and say, yeah, that sounds like me. Boom, that's my score. At the end of it, you get an overall score. You get an abundance benchmark score. And from there, you can say, all right, my score right now is this. I want to increase it by that. What do I need to do to cover that gap? And that's where the action starts to take place after the brutal honesty. So it's free for you to download. Go to MatthewBivens.com and get yourself the abundance benchmark. Today's gratitude goes to VJ Raju for the feedback on last week's episode. I really appreciate it, VJ. Thank you so much for the email. I also want to thank everyone who has left a review on iTunes. I appreciate your time in doing that. And if you want to leave a review, iTunes is definitely the best place to do it. Reviews really help this show to reach new ears, so I appreciate you taking a minute. I also want to say thank you to Maxwell and DJ Quads for the music used in today's episode. And I have links to the tracks in the show notes on firesidenetwork.com. And finally, thank you to all of you for listening. I really do appreciate you. I appreciate the time and, just knowing that you're out there listening. It means a whole lot. So thank you so much. And with that, my name is Matthew Bivens, and here is to you having it all.